Hi everyone, welcome back. In this little video, we're going to look at the difference between the two kinds of impact that you can measure in the B impact assessment. So if you've been working with the BIA already, you may have noticed that there are two kinds of impact: operational impact and impact business models. And it's good and important to know the difference between the two, so that you know what you're scoring points in and whether or not those points are realistic. So we're going to look at the underlying factors and the differences and similarities between these two kinds of impact. And we're also going to look at some examples from real-world certified B Corps to see what they look like in practice, hoping to enable you to fill out the assessment in a accurate manner. So let's get started by looking at those two ways of capturing impact and what sets them apart from each other. So we're going to start by looking at the operational impact. Operational impact is that impact that you can measure at any kind of company. These questions, the questions relating to operational impact, can more or less be asked to any company because they relate to the day-to-day management of your company. So it's really keeping the business running in a day-to-day basis. So what does it cover? Well, for example, it covers your facility management, the way that you purchase your materials or office supplies, the way that you treat your employees, the way that your decision making is governed, etc. So these are all topics that you can more or less ask from any company, right? And that doesn't really depend on the type of product they sell or the kind of industry that they're in, because almost every company has employee policies and governance structures. So this is a good way of thinking about it, the day-to-day management of the company. As I mentioned, it applies to all companies, independent of the design or the intent of the company. And it's usually they are aligned with best-in-class standards, so there are industry best practices. We can have a look at the list of the topics of operational impact that are in the BIA. So in the B impact assessment, remember that there are the 5 different impact areas, and these are the operational impact topics that you will find in the assessment. So you will find in, for example, the workers section that every company is asked about the financial security of its employees, the health and well-being opportunities that they have, the career opportunities that they have, but also the employee engagement and satisfaction measurements. So again, these are all topics that you can more or less ask from any company. The same goes for the environment impact area, for example. So every company has, to a certain degree, an environmental management. So how do you deal with the waste and the water that you create and use? How do you deal with the land and the life around you in the ecological world around you? So again, these are all questions that you can ask any company because it relates to the day-to-day operations of that company. Getting back to those two different ways, we'll see that impact business models are more special and more related to the reason of existence of a company. So if we look at those deciding factors, impact business models are either based on a product, a service, a particular beneficiary, or an activity or a structure of your company. And it relates to the design of your company and the way that your company is designed to have a specific positive influence on a certain stakeholder. So that's why it really has to come down to your reason of existence for your company. They are also unique to the B impact assessment. So that's why we sometimes call it kind of the secret sauce of the impact assessment, because these impact business models, or IBMs, are really what set the BIA apart from its maybe its peers or its competitors. So let's look at those impact business models, right? Whereas operational impact is really about doing things impactfully. So you can think about running your office impactfully. You have energy that you source, and if you use renewables for that, you are doing things impactfully. Those operational impact points don't go into depth yet on what you do. It's about how you do them. So doing things the right way. Impact business models, on the other hand, are really trying to capture those companies that do impactful things. So those companies that are structured and designed to positively benefit a certain stakeholder, whether it's the environment, the ecological environment around them, or their employees. It's really about the activities and the design of your company. So doing the impactful things, doing the right things. Impact business models, we'll dive a little bit in more detail on them. I mentioned already they're unique to a company usually, so they relate to the reason of existence of your company. They also create a significant positive effect for one of its stakeholders. So it should be relatively easily identifiable which stakeholder is positively impacted by this impact business model. So you should be able to identify, oh, this really cool thing that we do, or that our reason of existence is really close to benefiting the ecological world, or positively impacting the health of our customers, for example. So it has to be easily identifiable which stakeholder is positively affected. Lastly, it generally assesses the core product or service of the company, or the way that the company is designed. So if you're selling particularly healthy medical supplies, it's about the product that you sell. But it could also be, an impact business model could also relate to being worker owned. For example, if you have a worker owned worker ownership kind of structure, so your employees can become owner of your company. This is relating to the design of your company, of course. So both are possible. And we can look for a second at the different kinds of impact business models in the assessment. Let me drag this away. So these are all the impact business models that are in the assessment. Again, they are structured by each of the impact areas. And you'll find that in the governance area, for example, there's only one impact business model, which is called mission locked. And this is the mandatory IBM, so the mandatory impact business model, because it recognizes you having amended your articles of association, as you will have heard, is a requirement for B Corps. For the other impact areas, there are a couple of impact business models available. Let's look, for example, at the community section. So if you remember, the community impact area is about diversity and inclusion, but also about your supply chain, so the communities that you operate in. You'll see at the top, for example, poverty alleviation. So if your company is specifically designed and managed in a way that it exists to alleviate poverty in your supply chain, you may be able to explore this impact business model. Another one is the design to give. So if you have a company that is properly committed to donating a certain percentage of revenue or of profit to charitable organizations, this is a structural way of providing positive impact and may be able to be rewarded with the impact business model called design to give. Of course, there's also the environment section is also one that is quite symbolic, I would say, or easy to understand. If your company is active, for example, in the renewable energy sector, so you sell solar panels, or you have a system where people can rent solar panels, for example, you might be able to score extra points in the renewable energy impact business model. So these are some of the ways that impact business models really try to capture the reason of existence of your company. So it should be something that sets you apart from your competitors, essentially. We'll look at some, good reminder this, on average, every B Corp has around 0 to 2 IBMs per certification. So don't be too blindly locked into getting an IBM, because some companies do actually certify without an impact business model. If you have more than 2 impact business models selected, you may want to double check whether they are really capturing your impact well. Finally, we also have some examples here of what impact business models can look like in the real world examples. So we've collected some of the Benelux B Corps here and their respective IBMs. So starting from the left, you'll see that Tony Chocolonely, which may be a familiar name to some of you, actually scores points in the supply chain poverty alleviation impact business model. What does this mean? Well, for those that don't know Tony Chocolonely, their mission is to eradicate slavery in the cocoa supply chain. And for the impact they make in that respect, they score points in this IBM because they use positive trade terms, labor conditions, etc., to make sure that these cocoa suppliers are being paid premiums and are being treated like equal trading partners. Patagonia, as some or most of you I think will be familiar with, is particularly focused on the ecological world around us and in saving the resources that are in our natural world. So they try to counter resource depletion in multiple ways. So, for example, they have a take-back system and a repair system, and they also use recycled input materials in their products. And all of these initiatives are rewarded with the resource conservation impact business model. So they can confidently show and have verified by B-Labs analysts that their products contribute to conserving resources. An interesting one is also Decarbonize. So this is a Belgian B Corp, which is a business-to-business company, so a service company, which helps companies to reduce their environmental footprint. You could say, more broadly speaking, for similar companies, they do some kind of ecological or social sustainability consulting. And by this, they earn the points in the impact business model called impact improvement. So this is to recognize that companies like this help their clients to make a better ecological or social impact. So by the projects that Decarbonize runs with their clients, they actually have their biggest impact in their client base. Now, I mentioned already briefly that not all B Corps have an additional IBM. So Lean Lawyers here on the right, a law firm, is a B Corp without any additional impact business models. And I say additional because every B Corp has the mission log IBM for passing the legal requirement, but Lean Lawyers doesn't have an additional impact business model. So it is also possible to certify without an impact business model. It just means that you have to have very solid operational score. So you have to have all the daily operations of your company in good shape. That's it for this video. I want to thank you and wishing you good luck with working on the impact assessment. And refer back to this video whenever you get confused about the difference between impact business models and operational impact.